Hey there, it's me, Brett Fish, and last time we spoke about being the loud white presence in the room. And this one's going to be a little bit similar to that, but also a little bit different as we look at the idea of centering whiteness and how you shouldn't. So, what does centering whiteness mean? I mean, this is an easy one in a sense because it's kind of there in the topic, making whiteness the center. And this can take shape and form in a variety of different ways. And what's good is we've already covered a number of these, I think. We spoke about being informed by different voices. And so changing up the voices in terms of who you read, what podcasts you listen to, who you watch. And if those voices and writings are always done by white people, then you are making whiteness the center of your life. Whiteness is what informs you. The second one we looked at was in terms of interrogating the spaces that you visit and inhabit. And so talking about if your church or your business or your gym or your sports club or the people that sit across the dinner table from you, if those are all white all the time, then you are centering whiteness. And an easy way to kind of change those things is to go to different places, is to start inviting different people around, things like that. Now, this is a good moment for me to just tell you how I got this horribly wrong just last week. I was invited to speak on a panel where the overriding topic was the pandemic of racism. And I only realized 2 days before, or I only noticed 2 days before, I could have realized earlier, but I only noticed 2 days before that the panel was made up of 3 white men and 1 black woman. And so in a country where white people make up 9% of the population, we were making up 75% of the speakers on this panel. And so because it was so close to the time of happening, I didn't have time. If it had been a week or two earlier, probably the best thing to do would have been to chat to the organizers and say, please let me step out of here. Please can you invite a black, colored or Indian person to come speak, another woman to come speak. And even better, to recommend someone. Please get hold of Keegs. Please get hold of my friend Loveland. They will be amazing in this panel. And that is a way that we can decenter whiteness. Firstly, we've got to become aware of it, where it's happening. And that was a time when I got it horribly wrong. And it's probably good now to just let us know that it's okay to make mistakes. We're going to get it wrong. It's worse if you just do nothing. And so make mistakes. But when you make a mistake, own it and commit to doing better the next time. Like if the very next panel that I'm on becomes 3 white men and a black woman, or 4 white men, then I've really messed this time up. But hopefully now I'm going to be more observant, more aware, looking out for this thing. And so whiteness, surprisingly in a country where we make up 9% of the population, is still the standard, or something that's been put on a pedestal in so many other areas. And I'm sure we'll talk about this more later, but in the media, in terms of intelligence, white is seen as more clever. History's been whitewashed, and so we've been given the idea that white people came up with all the good inventions. And standards of beauty, we were told that white people are the standard of beauty. And so in schools in South Africa, rules work along the lines of hair that white people have. And there are rules that exclude hair that black people have sometimes. And we've seen a lot of that in the media. And so stop centering whiteness and find ways to dismantle where whiteness is the center. I just want to give you 3 examples of where other places you might see this. So, for example, you might go into a store and you need to speak to the manager, and there's a counter, and behind the counter there are 2 people that are both obviously managers. One is black and one is white. Address the black person. Now, my natural instinct probably is to think in my mind that the white person is going to be more clever, they're going to be more superior, because of inherent prejudice that I've grown up with, because the world has taught me those things. And so I need to start kind of deflating that lie by choosing differently. And so in that situation, I'm going to actively choose to speak to the black manager. The second example of this, which has happened a lot, is I might be talking to a black friend of mine. Somebody comes up and asks a question, and the black person answers the question. And then they ask a follow-up question, but they direct it to me. They make eye contact with me, and there's obviously something going on here. And in that situation, what I can do is defer to my black friend that I was chatting to. I can eye contact towards them, or I can maybe say something and really just pass the ball back to them. And then another example would be, and I think we spoke about this in terms of the loud white voice in the room. If you're in a business meeting and only white people have been speaking, or if black people have been being interrupted, if you're leading the meeting, it's probably a lot easier to do some of this stuff, but anyone can do it. And for example, if a white person interrupts a black person, you can interrupt that white person and say, sorry, I want to hear what Tando is busy saying here. And if it's a situation where maybe there's a black, colored Indian person in the meeting that hasn't had much to say, you can take an opportunity to say, hey, I'd really like to hear what Keegan has to say on this. And so there's an invitation, especially if the person's name is Keegan, because otherwise it might be a bit weird. But there's a space for invitation and call-in. And sometimes us dealing with the racism in us will look, "Arr!" But a lot of the time, if we're doing it nicely, it will look more, "Ah." Maybe that was as bad as the first one. I don't know. But a lot of us dealing with this stuff is just dealing with it naturally, not making a huge deal of it, just finding spaces where whiteness is in the center and just gently moving whiteness out of the way. That might mean me stepping out of the way, declining an invitation, suggesting someone else who's going to be amazing in that space. And so let's start becoming aware of it. So firstly, it's recognition, awareness. Let's start naming it when we see it. And then let's start committing to doing it better, to decentering whiteness. And that doesn't mean white people don't get to do anything, but it means in spaces where white people have been doing all of the things, we're starting to find opportunity and look for spaces where black, colored, and Indian people can step in, can be given the mic, can be listened to, can be seen as the voices of authority. And that is going to make the conversation and life so much richer, just like we spoke about with color blindness. We don't want color blindness. We want an array of voices and people and flavors and styles, because that is going to make all of this a lot more interesting. So let's go practice our decentering whiteness this week.